At 6:47 a.m. on the dot, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Don't come to Rob's memorial. Family only. No punctuation, no greeting. Just that. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, half awake, then sat up in bed. My condo windows stretched across the room, and the bay outside was already glowing with the sunrise. I'd paid cash for this place, 18 floors up in downtown Tampa. Marble floors, secure elevator access, panoramic water views, everything I had built from the ground up with my own company. She didn't know any of that. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? Jorge texted right after. Board meeting moved to 11, still on for Memorial Logistics? I didn't answer right away. My mother's message sat there like a rock in my chest. Rob died 3 days ago, peacefully, in his sleep at a private veterans lodge outside Sarasota. He was 83. What my family didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd been covering his care for the last 3 years. $20,000 a month, out of pocket. They thought the VA took care of it. They had no idea the VA had denied his benefits because of incomplete service records. No idea I spent months getting them corrected, digging through military archives, tracking down unit citations. Rob never asked. He would have just withered away in a government home if I hadn't stepped in. And now I wasn't family enough to show up. I tossed the covers off and walked barefoot to my office, still in my sleep shirt. I called Jeff, the funeral director. He picked up on the first ring. Hey, I wanted to make sure everything's still in place for the service, I said, keeping my voice steady. There was a pause on the other end. Actually, your mom called this morning, he said carefully. She's asking to scale it down. She sounded surprised. Everything had already been arranged. I gripped the edge of the desk. She doesn't know who paid. Number I didn't say anything. Just told her it was prearranged and taken care of. I exhaled through my nose. Good. Let's keep it that way. Jeff hesitated. She was asking a lot of questions about the military honors, the catering, seemed thrown off. She'll get over it, I said. Just make sure nothing changes. Understood. I hung up, walked to the kitchen, made coffee I didn't want. My phone buzzed again. Jorge, do you want security detail for the memorial or no? I stared at the screen for a beat, then typed back. No need. I won't be going. Jeff called me back 10 minutes after Jorge's last text. I answered on the first ring. Just wanted to confirm, he said. Your name didn't come up. I told her everything was prearranged through a third party. No names. Good, I said. Let them wonder. She was especially fixated on the military honors, he went on, and the food. Kept asking who approved a full catering spread. She think the government sends brisket now? I asked. Jeff gave a dry laugh. She looked rattled. I think she expected some cardboard cookies and a coffee pot. I didn't reply. She also asked if we'd have flowers. I told her yes. She said Rob didn't care about that stuff. Didn't sound thrilled. I leaned back in my chair and stared out at the water. What showed up? Roses and wild asters, Jeff said. Exactly like you ordered. Don't change anything, I told him. I don't care how she reacts. Understood. I hung up, stood, and walked back into the kitchen. Coffee was cold now, untouched. By 8:30, I was showered, dressed, and sitting in the downtown office of Bowman Tactical Solutions. Glass walls, biometric locks, bulletproof windows. The place looked more like a fortress than a company headquarters. I liked it that way. Lacey walked in at 9 sharp, binder in one hand, tablet in the other. Got the Q3 summaries for review. Want to start with Dallas or Miami? I took the binder and nodded toward the table. Dallas. We spent the next 30 minutes flipping through numbers, client retention rates, security breaches caught before escalation. We'd had a huge bump in federal contracts this quarter. Homeland was biting more than usual, but I wasn't focused. Lacey narrowed her eyes around the 40-minute mark. You're out of it. I'm good. You just agreed to renew a contract with a client we fired last quarter. I blinked, looked back down at the page. She was right. She folded her arms. What's going on? I didn't answer right away. Reschedule everything, she said flatly. Take the day. I don't need... You do, she cut in. I haven't seen you like this. You've been locked in for 3 straight years. Let yourself breathe. I exhaled, slowly closed the binder. Push everything to tomorrow. But don't tell the board I'm skipping the meeting. They'll live, she said, walking out before I could argue again. I stayed in the office for another hour, staring at charts I didn't absorb. Around 5, I grabbed my keys and left through the back lot. The chapel was only 10 minutes away. I didn't plan to stop, just drive by. But when I turned the corner, the parking lot was packed. Cars lined the side street, full-size trucks, old sedans, a couple military plates. Some neighbors, maybe, but most of them, vets. I pulled over a block away and killed the engine. People were stepping through the chapel doors in small groups. A few wore old service caps. One guy had medals pinned to his chest. Another was holding his wife's arm as she wiped her eyes. I sat there for a while, windows up, engine off. Didn't move. Then my phone rang. Jeff again. She asked again, he said without needing to say who. About the flowers this time. Still pushing? She got upset, he said. Said the asters didn't belong. Said Rob would have thought it was too much. Too much? I repeated, staring out at the entrance where a young woman in dress blues held the door open for an elderly couple. He used to pick them out of the yard when I was a kid. He called them the strong ones. Jeff was quiet for a moment. Then, she's not going to stop asking. She doesn't need to, I said. She already made it clear I'm not part of the family. Jeff sighed. You sure you don't want me to say something? Number, keep my name out of it. I don't want credit. Just make sure it's done right. It will be. I looked one last time at the chapel entrance. Then I started the engine and pulled away without stopping. I was halfway down the causeway, heading back to the condo, when Jeff called again. Your brother showed up at the viewing, he said without waiting for a hello. Didn't say much to anyone, but kept hovering near the casket. Asked me twice how he got approval for military honors. I gripped the wheel tighter. What did you tell him? Same thing I told your mother, that everything was cleared and documented through the Navy. But he didn't buy it. Said Rob never talked about his service. Kept saying it didn't make sense. Of course it didn't. None of them had bothered to ask. I did the work, I said, more to myself than to Jeff. Spent 6 months pulling every record, every unit transfer, cross-checking with field reports. Got in touch with his old commanding officer's son, tracked down a scan of his original Bronze Star citation in some dusty VFW archive. Yeah? Jeff said, quieter now. 2 Bronze Stars, I said, and a Purple Heart. They were never entered into the final discharge files because of a clerical screw-up during his transfer to stateside duty. The Navy was happy to restore his record when they saw the proof. They were honored to give him the ceremony. There was a pause on the other end. Then Jeff said, Well, that explains the look your brother had on his face. I let out a breath and leaned my head back against the seat. He never told us, Jeff added. Any of you. He didn't want to fuss, I said. Said medals were just reminders of bad days, but I wasn't going to let him be buried like he never mattered. Jeff cleared his throat. Eli came by too. Thought you'd want to know. I blinked. He did? Yeah. Quiet kid. Came in alone, stayed longer than anyone. Stood there with his hands in his pockets, wouldn't talk to anyone. Was he okay? Looked pretty shaken, Jeff said. Eyes were red. He didn't say much, but he didn't want to leave. I stared out the windshield. He's got a good heart. He looked proud, like he just found out Rob was more than everyone said he was. That hit harder than I expected. I swallowed, jaw tight. Eli doesn't know, right? I asked. About the tuition? Number far as he knows, it's a university grant. Good, that's how I wanted it. I'd been covering his full ride since his first semester. Tuition, books, housing. Robotics engineering wasn't cheap, and I knew my brother couldn't afford it. But Rob would have wanted the kid to have a shot, so I made it happen. He reminds me of Rob, I said. Quiet, stubborn, sharp as hell when he wants to be. Jeff paused, then said, You sure you don't want to come tomorrow? I closed my eyes. Jeff. Not for them, he said quickly. For him. I didn't answer right away. There's going to be people here who knew Rob from the lodge, from service, guys who'll say his name with respect. It's not going to be some fake family gathering. It'll be real. I opened my eyes and stared at the long stretch of road in front of me. I'll think about it. But I already knew I wouldn't. It was after 11 when my phone rang again. I was still dressed, lights low, sitting at the edge of the bed, flipping through an operations brief I hadn't processed at all. Caller ID lit up. Eli! I stared at the screen for a second before answering. Hey, I said. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then, his voice, low and tight. I went back tonight, he said. After everyone left, I didn't say anything, just listened. I just, I couldn't leave him there alone. I sat for a while, and then I saw it. The medals, bronze stars, a purple heart. His voice cracked hard on the last word. Nobody ever told me, he said. Not once. I swallowed. He didn't talk about it. I thought he just fixed old lawn mowers and watched baseball reruns. I didn't know he was a goddamn war hero. I could hear him breathing, shaky, like he was trying to keep it together but couldn't. Everyone's confused, he went on, about the whole thing. The flowers, the flag detail, the photos, the food. They keep saying it must be a mistake, that someone messed up and the VA sent all the wrong stuff. He sniffed, but I know better. I stayed quiet, letting the words hit. I stood there looking at his face, and I thought he'd laugh at all of them right now, because someone saw him, someone knew who he really was and made sure he was honored right. His voice dropped. Was it you? I didn't answer. Please, he said. I just want to know. My throat tightened, still nothing. He let out a shaky breath. Uncle Rob always said you were the only one who really saw him, said you two understood each other, that you had the same fire in you. I stared at the floor, my eyes started to sting. He'd tell me stories about when you were little, said you didn't take orders from anyone, not even him. A sad laugh came through the line. Then he went quiet again. I don't care what anyone else says, Eli said. I know it was you. I shut my eyes. You should be there, he said. Tomorrow. You have to be there. My voice finally came, but it was low. They don't want me. I do. That one word, I cut straight through me. Please come, he said. For him. For what he stood for. You did this right. You gave him something they never would have. I didn't answer. I couldn't. After a moment, Eli just said, Okay, I'm gonna go. I just needed to say it. The line went dead. I didn't move for a while, just stared at the quiet screen. Then I stood, walked over to the hallway closet, and pulled down the old photo album Rob gave me last Christmas. It was leather-bound, thick, barely held together with a strap. I opened it and flipped past photos of a backyard barbecue in '94, an old trip to Cape Coral, a blurry one of me sitting on his shoulders at a ball game. Tucked in the back was a yellow note card in his handwriting. I'd forgotten it was there. To my girl, you don't follow maps, you build them. R. I sat down on the floor with the album still open in my lap, and for the first time in years, I let myself fall apart. The album was still on the floor when I stood up. My chest was tight, throat raw. I walked to the window and pressed a palm to the glass. Tampa at night was quiet in a way the daylight never was. Streetlights glinted off the bay, towers blinking red in the distance. Down below, everything looked small, slow, like none of it could touch me from up here. I remembered what Rob used to say when I doubted myself. You don't owe them small, you owe them strong. He said it after my first contract win. Said it again when my own brother laughed in my face for starting a company instead of finding a husband. Said it when I told him I'd never be what they expected. He never flinched. Never once made me feel like I had to apologize for being the one who figured things out on her own. I checked the clock, 2:03 a.m. I grabbed my phone and called Jeff. He picked up fast, voice raspy. Everything okay? Yeah, I said, but I want to add something to the memorial. All right, what do you need? A scholarship, I said, in Rob's name, for kids from military families, ones who can't afford the next step but should have the chance anyway. Jeff was quiet for a beat. That's a big addition. I'm putting in $2 million, I said flat. It'll be a permanent fund, administered through a veterans education nonprofit. I already know the group. Jesus, Jeff muttered. That's incredible. It's what he would have done if he'd had the means, I said. He gave everything he had to this country and this family. Nobody ever gave him anything back. He'd be proud of you, Jeff said. Really proud. I didn't say anything. Should I announce it at the reception? Yeah, I said. I'll send you the name and details before morning. Jeff hesitated. Are you coming? I looked out the window again. Same skyline, same stillness. This time, I didn't dodge it. Yeah, I said. I'll be there. All right, he said, a little surprised. I'll make sure you've got a seat. I hung up before I could second guess it. I walked down the hall to my closet. Everything was neat, color-coded, sectioned by season, backup gear on the far end. I reached past the suits and vests, pulled out a black dress, Simple, sharp, nothing soft about it. Then I opened the top drawer of my dresser and took out the watch Rob gave me after I landed the DHS contract. It wasn't fancy. Leather strap, silver face, still had the small scratch across the glass where I'd banged it against a safe house wall in Boston. I laid it next to the dress. Then I turned off the light. The sun was already high when I pulled into the chapel lot. I parked near the back, away from the main line of cars, and waited a few seconds before killing the engine. People were walking in slowly, dressed mostly in black. A few older vets wore uniforms or parts of them, caps, pins, jackets that didn't fit quite right anymore. Jeff had texted me the location of the pew he'd reserved. Side aisle, fourth row from the back. Perfect spot to keep out of sight. I slipped in just as the service started. The room was quiet, but it carried weight. The kind of silence that didn't come from awkwardness, it came from respect. I recognized some neighbors, a few men from the Veterans Lodge, one guy from Uncle Rob's old mechanic shop. My family was clustered up front. I saw my mother stiff as ever, and my brother sitting next to her, arms crossed. Jeff caught my eye from the front row, gave a small nod. The flag-draped coffin stood in the center. On either side, the framed medals, the folded uniform. The photo of Rob in his early 30s, grinning, bronze tan, standing beside a naval aircraft with his arms slung over another man's shoulder. The honor guard moved like clockwork. When they folded the flag, the air shifted. You could hear the rustle of the cloth as they pressed the corners with exact precision. My mother turned her head sharply and reached for a tissue. It was the first time I'd ever seen her cry. The pastor stepped forward and started the eulogy. I'd sent him the stories myself, carefully chosen, edited, factual. No fluff, just the truth. He taught a neighborhood kid how to drive stick in a rusted-out Buick. He patched up the fence for 3 houses on his block without ever asking for a dime. He showed up to every VA fundraiser, even when he couldn't stand long enough to stay the whole night. The stories weren't dramatic, but they landed, because they were real. He never liked attention, the pastor said, but he lived a life that earned it anyway. I kept my eyes forward and didn't move. After the service, we shifted to the reception downtown. Private dining club, top floor, high ceilings, old school wood trim, live string trio playing near the bar. Veterans mixed with family, neighbors with colleagues. Every table had photo spreads. I'd picked each one. Rob in uniform, Rob laughing with a beer in hand, Rob teaching Eli how to fish off the dock behind his old house. The food was no joke. Filet, roasted vegetables, rolls the size of softballs. Nobody touched much of it at first. My mother stood near the wall, scanning the room like she was waiting for someone to explain what the hell was going on. My brother leaned into her and said something. She shook her head slowly. Eli came in late, shirt wrinkled, tie crooked, eyes locked on the photo wall by the entrance. He didn't go to his dad. He walked straight toward the table with the medal display and stood there with his hands in his pockets, jaw tight. I stayed in the background, near the service staff entrance. A few people glanced my way and nodded, probably thinking I was someone's lawyer or logistics coordinator. I didn't correct them. Let them wonder. I sipped my water, tucked my hands in my jacket pockets, and watched my family float through a tribute they didn't build, surrounded by people who knew a version of Rob they'd never cared to learn about. And still, they had no idea how any of it had come to be. Jeff stepped up to the podium near the front of the room, tapping the mic gently. The crowd settled. Clinking glasses, quiet conversation, and soft music faded as everyone turned. "Thank you all for being here today to honor Robert Milton," Jeff began. "I've done a lot of these over the years, but few have stuck with me like this one." He glanced at the medal display behind him, then continued. "There's something special we'd like to share with you before the reception ends. A lasting tribute, not just to Rob's service, but to the kind of man he was when the uniform came off." I knew it was coming. My heart still pounded. "A new scholarship is being created in Robert's name," Jeff said. "It will support students from military families, those who've sacrificed quietly, just like he did. It starts with a $2 million commitment." Gasps swept through the room. Murmurs, chairs shifting. My mother's head whipped around toward the podium, then toward the room. She was scanning faces. Jeff paused just long enough for it to land. "And now, I'd like to introduce the person who made all of this possible." Every head turned. Jeff nodded to me. I stepped forward. My heels echoed on the polished wood. The room went still. I took the mic, steady and sharp. My mother's face had gone pale. My brother looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Eli's eyes widened, lips parted like something just snapped into place for him. I didn't look at any of them when I spoke. Uncle Rob believed in doing what you could with what you had. Not for applause, not for attention, just because it was right. A few heads nodded. One of the older vets murmured, "That's true." He didn't come from wealth. He didn't chase status. He lived small but gave big, to anyone who needed it. I paused. "So, in his name, we're starting the Robert Milton Legacy Fund. $2 million to start. And more to come." I heard someone exhale sharply. Another person clapped once, then the rest followed. The room filled with applause. A few people stood, others wiped their eyes. I saw Jeff watching me with something close to pride. Eli stood up and clapped hard. His eyes were glassy. When the applause faded, I added, "This fund will be for kids like Eli, kids who deserve a shot, who have something to offer but not always the means to get there." Rob saw that in people. He saw it in me. I nodded once, handed the mic back to Jeff, and stepped down. I barely made it 2 steps before I heard them behind me. "Wait," my mother said. Her voice was small, stiff, like it barely knew how to ask anything of me. I turned. She and my brother stood side by side, shell-shocked. "You did all this?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. "You paid for the funeral?" my brother added. "The ceremony? The food?" I gave a small nod. "All of it." They didn't speak, just stared. "I didn't do it for you," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I did it for him." My mother blinked slowly. "I thought the VA—" "They didn't," I cut in. "They denied his benefits. He didn't want you to know. I made sure he was taken care of." She looked away, jaw twitching. My brother rubbed a hand over his mouth. I turned back toward the exit, ready to leave it at that. But then Eli was there, slipping past them and walking up to me. He didn't say anything, just wrapped his arms around me, tight. And for the first time in a long time, I let someone hold on. After Eli let go, I stepped aside to grab some air near the balcony. The doors were cracked open. Cool breeze rolled in off the bay. I'd barely taken a breath before I heard his voice behind me. My father. "Where did this money come from?" I turned. He was standing there in a dark suit that didn't quite fit anymore. Arms crossed, brow pulled so tight it looked like a permanent crease. "You always told us you worked in marketing," he said. "I never said that," I replied. "You all just assumed." He stepped closer. "You're telling me you had $2 million lying around for a scholarship?" I didn't blink. "I run a national security company." He stared at me like I'd grown 2 heads. "Since when?" "Since I built it from scratch 10 years ago." My brother walked up behind him, still pale. "You're saying you own a business?" "Bowman Tactical Solutions," I said. "I'm the CEO." They both stood there like I'd just spoken a different language. "Wait," my brother said. "That Bowman?" Eli was already pulling out his phone. His fingers flew across the screen. A second later, he turned the screen around. "Is this you?" My name, my photo, company site, Forbes profile. "CEO and founder of Bowman Tactical Solutions," Eli read aloud. "Private defense contractor, federal and global clients, estimated value over $3.8 billion. My dad took a step back. My brother's jaw literally dropped. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. "I'm not," I said. "I've been building this while you all were busy calling me difficult, stubborn, ungrateful. Whatever label made it easier not to ask questions." My mom came around the corner. She saw all of us standing there, eyes locked. "What's going on?" "Ask your daughter," my dad said, still dazed. "She apparently runs a global security empire." She looked at me. "What?" "I paid for everything," I said clearly. "The funeral, the memorial, the food, the photos, the chapel. The medals were real. I worked with the Navy to restore his records. And I paid for his care for the last 3 years. $20,000 a month. Private veterans facility. He lived well. Quiet, but well." My mom's mouth parted, but no sound came. "And the scholarship?" she asked. I nodded. "That too." She looked like her legs might give out. She reached for the back of a chair and sat slowly, staring through me. "I thought," she began, but couldn't finish. "You thought I was scraping by," I said. "You thought I was the quiet one, the lost cause, the disappointment." She covered her mouth. Tears started falling, fast and hard. My dad stood behind her, stunned. My brother still looked like he was waiting for someone to yell "Gotcha." How? He finally said. How did we not know? I shrugged. You never asked. Eli stepped forward. You really paid for Grandpa's care all this time? I did, I said. He didn't want pity, and I didn't want credit. I just wanted him to have peace. My mother sobbed harder. My brother ran both hands down his face. I feel like an idiot, he muttered. I've been giving you crap for years. Meanwhile, you've been out here building a damn empire. It wasn't about proving anything to you, I said. It was about honoring the man who believed in me before anyone else did. My mom looked up at me, red-eyed. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't see you. I didn't say anything, because it was too late to pretend that sorry fixed it. But still, she finally saw me. Nobody moved for a while. My mom kept wiping her face, still hunched in the chair like she'd run a marathon. My dad leaned against the wall, arms crossed, silent but watching. My brother kept pacing, glancing at me, then back down at the floor like he couldn't believe I was real. Eli broke the silence. Was it you paying for school? I looked at him. Yeah. His eyes dropped. I thought it was some special military grant or something. You earned it, I said. I just made sure it got where it needed to go. He gave a small nod, jaw tight. Grandpa would have done it if he could have. I know. My brother finally stopped pacing. I need to say something, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I waited. I was a jerk to you for a long time. Years. I treated you like you didn't matter, like you weren't capable of anything serious. He looked up, face red. I used to joke you were probably living off ramen in some dingy apartment. You weren't far off, I said. At first. He shook his head. You didn't deserve that. None of it. I thought I had everything figured out, but turns out I couldn't see past my own expectations. Uncle Rob did, I said, even when I didn't. My mom looked up again. Her voice was quiet. I didn't understand what you were doing. I thought maybe you were embarrassed or lost. I wasn't lost, I said. I was just busy doing something you didn't bother asking about. She nodded slowly. You're right. We didn't ask. We assumed. I didn't need validation, I said, but I did need space, and I took it. My dad finally spoke. Why didn't you say anything? You ever give me a reason to? I asked. He paused, then shook his head. Number, I guess we didn't. I had nothing to prove, I said. And honestly, I still don't. The air felt different now, heavier but less tense, like something had broken and it wasn't a bad thing. I'm not here to settle scores, I said, or rub anything in. I did what I did because I loved him, because I respected him, and because I had the means to do it right. My mom stood, slowly, shaky. Is there a way back? She asked. To something better? I looked around at them, all of them. I'm willing to start fresh, I said. No fake forgiveness, just truth. From here on out. They nodded. Deal, my brother said. I want to know you, the real you. I'm here, I said simply. My mom wiped her eyes again. I missed a lot. You weren't the only one, I said. Then my dad stepped forward. He looked at me for a long second. Not cold, not angry, just seeing me. You honored him better than we ever could, he said. I didn't flinch. I know. He gave a short nod, almost like a salute, then turned away to rejoin the others. And just like that, something cracked open in the middle of all the damage. Not perfect, not fixed, but real. The room was nearly empty when Jeff found me again. Chairs pushed in, dishes cleared. The string trio had packed up and gone. He stood next to me, silent for a second, then said, You did right by him. I nodded, eyes still on the display at the front. I want to add something to the headstone, I said. Jeff waited. One line. He built others by believing in them. He blinked, then gave the smallest smile. Perfect. I'll make the call. We stood there a moment longer before I heard footsteps behind me. It was my mom, dad, Jake, and Eli. Shoulders relaxed, eyes softer than they'd been in years. We were talking, my mom said, and we'd really like you to come to dinner. Nothing formal, just to talk. Get to know you. I looked at her for a second, then nodded. Okay. Jake cleared his throat. We've got questions, he said, managing a half smile. A lot of them. I'll answer all of them, I said. Even the ones about my company. Eli lit up. Can I bring my textbooks? I'm taking an advanced cybersecurity class this fall. Yeah, I said. Bring 'em. We'll go over your routing protocols and VPN layers after dessert. He laughed like he couldn't believe I'd said that. I knew it, he said. I knew you were the cool one. As they turned to head out, Jake hung back and pulled me aside. I meant what I said earlier, he told me. You gave more than the rest of us combined. Not just money, everything. I held his gaze. We all do our best with what we know, I said. Now you know better. He gave a slow nod, eyes glassy, then followed the others out. I left through the side door and crossed the lot to my truck. Still the same beat-up Tacoma I bought back when the company was just 2 laptops and a rented basement in Tallahassee. I fired it up, the engine growling like always, and pulled onto the main road. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not because I'd proved anything, but because Rob was right. Again, he didn't just give me belief. He gave me legacy, and now maybe the family could finally start honoring that together.